Well, what do we have here? You're looking at the bag that comes with my training sword, and that is what we're going to be looking at today. The date is Saturday, May 25th, 2024, and this is Survival Saturday, of course. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. Rather than reviewing a knife or showing you guys some martial art moves, actually going to look at one of my favorite training tool. This is one of my personal holy grail. And we're going to take a close look at it, and I'm going to talk about it. And hopefully, those of you who are into swords will be inclined to pick one up. It is a little bit on the pricey side for some people. Now, when I tell you that it's a training sword and costs about $70, $80 US, sometimes when you're lucky, you might be able to get it for 50 or 60. But a lot of people say, that's crazy. 70, $80, get a training sword. You can't even cut anything with it. Not really. Honestly, because it's something that you're going to be training with, you want it to be pretty good quality stuff. Because uh, if you are used to training with things that are not balanced properly or shaped properly or worked properly, then you are going to always be messing up your technique because you're going to be compensating for it all the time. So if it's something that if you're serious about your training, then definitely put in the money to get something that at least middle of the road like this one. Yes, I did just say it's expensive, and now I'm saying it's middle of the road. It seems expensive when you're spending almost $100 to get a training sword, but honestly, from a martial art practitioner's point of view, this is just middle of the road, maybe even towards the lower end. Like, yes, you can get training swords that are $20, but the first time you smack something with it by accident, it's going to break, and you just wasted $20, and it's not going to feel anything like the real sword, not like this, right? Some of the best, most commonly used sparring swords and practice sword like uh, Red Dragon Armory. I still need to get myself one of those. The Red Dragon Armory sword are usually around $100, $90, sometimes 120, and so the quality is more or less comparable with something like this. So yes, $100 seems like a big deal, but when you get a training tool that should, as long as you don't mess around with it too much, or do something crazy with it, it should be your best friend for many, many years to come and travel with you around the world when you travel. Because when you're traveling, you still want to pay attention to your martial arts, and it's always fun to be able to pull out a sword, even though it's a training sword, and go outside and just swing around and go through your basic forms and patterns. I love doing that. Like, I think there's a video on 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 YouTube of me doing my sword form at the ocean side early in the morning. It's quite poetic and zen, and I love doing things like that. I used to, when the rain, I would go out there and be going through my sword forms in the rain, and yeah, it sounds crazy, right? But it sounds it's totally amazing when you do that. It feels amazing. Anyway, enough preamble. Let's get this sword out of the bag, and we'll take a look at it. But first, let's look at the bag. Pretty nice. Okay, it's you got the main zipper compartment, and then there's a little zipper pouch in front. I'm trying to reach around the camera. This is kind of awkward. Turn it around. There's a strap. You can't really carry on your back unless you really loosen this up. But even then, if you're kind of bulky like me, this is not going to go around your shoulder. But for smaller people, this is fine. But at least it gives you something to hold on to. On the back, there's like a yin yang symbol, Chinese character, and I think there's like a smiley face or something on the case. But that's it for the case. It's very slender. Now we pull the case open, and here is my baby. Now the yellow belt on this did not come with the sword. It's just one of my old martial art belt I put on the sheath of the sword, so I can wear it around my waist when I'm training. Okay. So yeah, the yellow belt does not come with the sword. The sheath is a beautiful piece of work, nice and slender. This it's more slender than my flute actually, and it's wood with some metallic bands around it. Really, really well made. I'm gonna pass it slowly through, and the hilt of the sword have some nice uh, design like a swirl, swirly. I think those are like the infinity symbol or something. And uh, the grip is, I think, metal. And no, it's not a full tang sword, but for training sword, it's okay. We don't need a 14 sword for training because honestly, for something like this, you're not supposed to be whacking things or people hard with it. Okay, this sword you have to treat it like what it is. It's a sword for you to work your sword technique. It's not a sword for you to take and bash people with it or uh, dinging each other, like clashing sword with. Like if you have someone who use a sword, who have another sword like this, and you want to do some light sparring, it's fine, but it's not for that purpose. So again, I want to, before we go any further, I want to just really emphasize this. Use it as what it's intended for. It's for you to work your sword technique. It's not for you to cut things with. It's not for you to hit things with. It's not for you to do heavy sparring with. Okay, it's not supposed to split someone's helmet open. Okay, but light sparring, it's perfectly fine. As long as you remember that this is a training sword. It's not full tang. The tang is a rat tail tang that go over the cylindrical hilt, goes through the cylindrical hilt, and you can actually see in the uh, pommel here. There's a bolts in there. That's how it's bolted on. That's how that is screwed on. Okay, it's a very skinny piece of metal going through that. So if you try to hit things with this, it's going to break. It's going to come loose, and you're going to mess up a 60 $70 US training sword. So be mindful of that. Okay, it's not for the zombie apocalypse. If you want something that you can whack trees with, go and get a full tang low budget sword. You can get $60, $40 low budget sword that's perfectly made for that. They're actually more like machetes than sword, but uh, they can do that job much better than something like this. This is for uh, practice. This is not for real combat, right? Uh, on the pommel, there's this nice tassels that it come with. Okay, this is great for people who love the look of these tassels, but honestly, for me, because I am not trained in the traditional Chinese washu or Tai Chi style sword, I mean, I do some Tai Chi style saber, but it's very different than straight sword like this. So what I usually do is when I'm practicing, I will take off the tassel and just set them aside. I'll put them in that little zipper compartment with the on the sword bag itself, so I don't lose them because they do look pretty cool as decoration. But I hate them honestly. I hate them when I'm practicing with this because they are again, because I'm not trained in that style, so the tassels distract me more than serve any purpose. My style of swordsmanship is more Western and European. Yeah, I know. And I'm using a Chinese sword for that. Isn't that ironic? So this is what it looked like without the tassel on the hilt. Much more simplistic, much more direct forward. And now we're going to unsheath this. And on this very slender blade, you can, I'm going to bring it closer, flip it around, and you can see there's some words etched into it, etched along the blade. And this is a very, very slender blade, and it's metal, and it's very elastic. It's a very soft, very springy metal. I love this. Okay, it's like, look at that. Okay, it's not going to break. If you hit something by accident, it's just going to bounce. Okay, it's like this is a really nice uh, material for a training sword. So even if you stab each other, and this is going to hurt, right? This has a tiny bit of point on it, but if you stab someone, it's going to break the skin, but it's not going to go all the way in because it's going to bend, it's going to flex. Okay, so that's a bit of a built-in safety for something like this. This style of sword is commonly used for movie prop in Chinese kung fu movies, so they don't accidentally impale each other. The blade itself, let me go out a little bit. The blade itself is about 30 inches long, and the hilt is about 9 inches. So the whole thing is about 39 inches long. Um, Depending on what style of swordsmanship you would like to practice, the sheath itself even served as an offhanded blocking tool or um, uh, blunt weapon. But again, this is uh, not meant for heavy fighting. So just be careful with that. It's a very nice sheath. You don't want to damage that. You don't want to crack the wood, right? This is of I've handled a lot of training sword, most of them really cheap. I've handled a lot of low end, low budget training sword in my days. And this honestly is like the best. This just feels amazing in hand. Uh, so I'm going to adjust the camera and then uh, we're going to actually talk more about this sword and and look at it in hand. Just so I don't have to keep trying to reach around the camera. Getting pretty annoying. Now, before anyone pointed out to me, I understand this looks totally ridiculous with sunglasses and headset on. Normally, when I'm training, I do not wear my headset. At least not this one, and I don't keep my sunglasses on. But anyway, so here we have with a sword secured around the waist and the belt, as I intended it to be. Now, this feels really good, actually. That's uh, right on the hip, really nicely, and it doesn't really add any kind of hindrance to your movement as long as you're not trying to sit down. If you're trying to sit on the floor, this is going to be a problem. But any person who's ever worked with swords knows that is an issue. Come out nice and smooth and quick. With a sword like that, because it's a double-edged uh, weapon, uh, of course, when you are drawing your sword, you want to pay attention to what happens to your left hand, right? Because A lot of time when we're used to working with katana or single-edged saber or anything similar, the one of the common practice is to have your hand, your offhand forward to ward off the person coming too close and then draw it like this. But of course, with a double-edged blade, what's going to happen with that is you're going to slice your own arm. If you go like this, you're going to slice your own hand, right? So be mindful. The technique for drawing the sword with a double-edged blade is different than a single-handed one. Okay, so I'm going to sweep my left hand back behind me to give myself enough clearance for this, especially the longer blade, to come out. From this angle, if I were sighted, of course, then I can keep my eye on the opponent across my blade, and my blade would already be uh, ready for parrying or cutting or anything like that. Okay, anyway, little trivia for swordplay. This feels so good in hand, guys. Like I can't even adequately describe how balanced this feels. A lot of time when you get a training sword, especially a low end one, it's either going to be tip heavy, which means it's hell on your wrist when you're working with it because it's going to constantly pull you off center, or it's heavy on the handle and you feel like you're knitting. You feel like you're just like there's nothing in front of your hand and you're just like swinging around a rock. This does not have that issue. Whether if you grip it close to the pommel or close to the guard, I can switch my grip very easily with this. You don't ever do that with sword play anyway, but I'm just showing you guys how well this move in the hand, right? This feels really, really good. Very easy to control. Now, the I don't really like the smooth handle, the smooth grip. Um, if you want, you can wrap tapes around it to give yourself more traction because when you start to sweat, this does become very twisty and slippery in your grasp. And before I forget, this sword, if you guys want to look for it, it's from Ait Supply, AIT Supply, AIT Supply, and the serial number, model number is S0018. Sometimes they have weird things like kung fu, elastic, karate sword, or some other keywords they put on it. But yeah, if you see that it's around the $60, $70, $90 range, this is the one. Okay, don't get the $20. There's some that say elastic blade that are $20, $30. Don't get those because those, the moment you swing it hard, it's going to break. Like the screw, the bolt will break on the handle and the whole blade become useless. This one, however, as long as you don't hit something hard with it, you can swing it with a lot of force, right? I just hit the edge of the table, but it's fine. It's fine, right? That was not intended, by the way. Yeah, there's no looseness whatsoever. Right? You don't want to do that too many times. This feels even good enough in the offhand. Now, before we wrap this up, I want to, since we got this sword here, I want to address a couple of things that yesterday I was watching a video and it's a Chinese professor guy talking about why Chinese people favored single-edged sword over double-edged sword. Okay, and halfway through I realized one thing that this guy is a great archaeologist and great historian, but he doesn't know jack shit about uh, actual fighting and using a sword because he made a lot of bogus claims that and two of them I want to debunk here. And I'm not going to name the guy because we are all here trying to do our best for YouTube, and he does when he talk about the origin of the weapon and how they were made in history. He had a lot of good stuff in there. He just when he talk about how it's used, he wasn't he was full of misinformation. So I'm going to just throw this out there. Here are the two things I'm going to debunk with beliefs like that. Number one, the historian claimed that the reason the Chinese people favor single-edged sword over double-edged sword is because double-edged sword is only good for thrusting. And he claimed that a sword is only good for thrusting when it's double-edged and you can't chop or slice with it. Okay, that is totally wrong. Like, if you guys played enough video game, you watch enough movie or cartoon, you know a double-edged sword can cut just as well as well. Okay, let me rephrase that. It can't cut as well as a single-edged blade, but it can cut really, really well. Okay, I'm pulling my stroke because I don't want to ruin my blade. Because, like I said, this is not for chopping. This is practice blade. It's not for bashing around. But I'm showing you guys. Okay, this can cut just fine. It's a 30-inch blade. If this was sharp, this would be sharp on both sides, and it's well balanced in your hand. It comes around really quick when you swing this. You can cut and chop just fine with this. Okay, there's no reason why you can't cut with it just because it's double edged. Just like some people claim katana single edged, you can't stab with it. You totally can. Okay, anyone who say that, I said like, okay, you stand there, I'll show you how I can stab you with a katana. You can totally stab with it. Okay? Uh, so this kind of misnomer need to be set straight. Double-edged sword definitely can cut very, very well. Just go watch Lord of the Rings if you don't believe me. Okay, second, the professor claimed that double-edged sword uh, were ruled out because you can't get enough power behind the swing because you can only use one hand. Again, totally BS. If any of you seen enough medieval fantasy or medieval kind of movie or stuff like that, okay? Sword like this one behind me. Okay, this one. Okay, definitely can use both hands for something like this. Okay, this is definitely it's more like a hand and a half blade, but you can definitely two hand this and get a lot of power behind your swing, even with something like this. And there were swords that were definitely built for two hand. You guys can see that when I have a sword strapped around my waist, I have to think about how to get down to the floor and pick things up. I can't just bend down because this is going to push against the floor. It's something that you have to think about when you are working with swords. Let me hang this back. Now, even with just our slender Chinese sword here, yes, it's primarily made for one hand, so you can do a lot of quick movement with it. But it's a 9-inch hilt, for Christ's sake. I can two-hand this no problem. Okay, and my hands are not that small. Okay, I can totally two-hand this and get a lot of power behind my swing. Again, I'm pulling my swing because I don't want to hit something full force by accident and ruin my $100 blade. So in the end, um, the idea, the sword, a two-edged sword, is only good for thrusting and you can't cut with it, totally false. And the idea that you can't get adequate power behind it because you can't two-hand it totally falls too. By the way, just a little thing to throw out there. A lot of people like to look cool, and then they can do their sword thing, and then they want to do this quick going into the sheath without guiding with their hand or looking. Okay, that's just for the movie, man. That if you want to, like the important part in battle, the important part in combat is when this come out and how you use it when it come out. How you sheath it doesn't matter. Okay? Don't do that crazy stuff where you just and then stab yourself in the gut when you miss the sheath. Okay? That's crazy. Okay? When you sheath the sword, take your time. Guide it in with your hand or look down a little bit so you know what you're doing. There's no reason trying to be cool by trying to sheath and stabbing yourself in the leg. Again, if you're interested in this blade, look for Ait Supply S0018 Kung Fu Elastic Sword. It's about anywhere between $60 US to $100 US. Don't get the cheap ones. This one is really, really good, and it will be your good training partner for many years to come, hopefully. Just don't, again, don't hit anything too hard with it. Thank you for being here, and we'll be back again tomorrow.